Okay, welcome to lesson 9 here. And in this lesson, we're going to be looking at what we call combinations of functions. And typically, combinations of functions means that we take two or more functions, like f of x and g of x here, and we combine them into new functions to create new functions. And that's what's happening here. So here, in this case, we have f of x is equal to x squared plus 8x, and g of x is equal to x minus 10. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to do, in this particular video, we're going to do 4 kinds of combinations. We're going to do an addition combination, a subtraction, a multiplication, and a division. Okay, so these are pretty simple, and there's a couple ways to write them. Before we start, I want to show you that f plus g is the same thing as f plus g of x. So sometimes you'll see it written like this. Sometimes you'll see it written like this. But these two, they both mean the exact same thing. Okay, so don't worry about that too much. So the addition here, addition of two functions, basically just means that we take f of x and add it with g of x, which is pretty simple. So we'll take f of x here, which is x squared plus 8x, and then we'll add it to what g of x is, which is x minus 10. And this is basically all we're doing is combining like terms. So we'll take x squared. There are no like terms to x squared, so we'll just bring over x squared. Then we have 8x plus x, 8x plus x, and 8x plus x is 9x, so this will become plus 9x. And then we've got this negative 10 here. Well, there are no like terms, there are no constants over here, so really it's like we have a 0 over here, so it's 0 plus negative 10, and 0 plus negative 10 is negative 10. And so f plus g is the function x squared plus 9x minus 10. And if we wanted to identify the domain of this function, we can say domain. And the domain is, this is a quadratic function because it's an x squared function. And the domain of all quadratic functions is negative infinity up to positive infinity. Okay. When we do subtraction, this is the same thing as f minus g of x. Okay, that's the exact same thing. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to take f of x and we're going to subtract g of x. And so that's going to be x squared minus 8x, that's f of x, minus g of x, which is just x minus 10. And we're going to subtract a negative here, so that's going to make things a little bit different. So here we have x squared. There isn't any like terms over here to subtract, so we're just going to bring over the x squared. Now we have this is plus 8x, my apologies. Now we have plus 8x, positive 8x, minus x. Well, 8x minus x is 7x, so this is going to become plus 7x. And then, like I said, there's no constants over here. There are no like terms to 10 or negative 10. So we're just going to say there's a 0 over here, so it's like plus 0. 0 minus negative 10. Well, minus negative 10 means plus 10. So this will become plus 10. And so this is f, the function, the combination function f minus g. And it's a quadratic, and therefore the domain is going to be from negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay. fg can sometimes be written as fg of x. That's the exact same thing. Okay. And so don't worry about that. It doesn't mean anything different. That's the same thing. Okay. And so this is going to simply be f of x times g of x. We're just going to multiply the two functions. Okay. And so we're going to take x squared plus 8x, and we're going to multiply it by x minus 10. And in order to multiply it, we're going to have to distribute. So we're going to have x squared times x, which is x to the third power. Then we'll have x squared times negative 10, which is minus 10x squared. Then we'll have 8x times x, which is positive 8x squared. And then we're going to have 8x times negative 10, which is minus 80x. And then if we combine like terms here, we're going to wind up with x cubed. And then we have negative 10x squared plus 8x squared. Another way to think about this is it's positive 8x squared minus 10x squared, which is minus 2x squared. And then we have our minus 80x. And if we wanted to identify the domain of this, it is a cubic function, and cubic functions have the domain negative infinity to positive infinity. That's all real numbers. You can plug anything into a cubic function. There's nothing that can't be plugged in legally, okay? All right, so now let's go to f over g, or f slash g, which sometimes can be represented by f over g of x. It could be written just like that, okay? And so this very simply is the same thing as f of x over g of x. F of x over g of x. Well, f of x is x squared plus 8x over g of x is just x minus 10. And this doesn't need to be simplified. This is about as simplified as it can be. So this is our final answer. This is the combination function f over g of x. Okay. And if we wanted to identify the domain, note that x cannot equal 10, because if x was equal to 10, 10 minus 10 would be 0. And so if we say, okay, well, x cannot be equal to 10, first of all, or sorry, let me take that back. You write it this way. X minus 10 cannot be equal to 0, and therefore x cannot be equal to 10. And so sometimes this is how you write the domain. You just write what x cannot be equal to, okay? But we have learned how to write the domain in interval notation, which would be negative infinity up to 10, parenthesis, so we'll leave 10 out, union 10 up to infinity, okay? And so this is just an introduction. This is how we do combinations of functions. I hope this seems as easy to you as it is, as I think it's easy. And so what we'll do in the next video is we'll look at some more examples that dig a little bit deeper.